be a great little. We got it. Thank you.
30 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's actually half an hour and 30 seconds, but who's counting?
Technology.
So there used to be a game show in the U.S. called Stump the Stars. This is kind of Stump the Stars, and if you have or yeah, I like it.
I don't like the way this is going.
It was so much fun until a few seconds ago. So, what are a couple models that you would be curious about? How bringing them in conversation could help the work you do?
Don't all speak at once.
Xanadu.
Yeah, Xanadu.
Okay.
Oh, Xanadu.
How did Xanadu?
How did Xanadu even get up there?
After decades, finally find its way into the modeling language. Very personal. Very personal. I grew up.
Go closer and louder.
I learned to read before I went to school. My mother taught me to read using Coleridge, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. You can imagine my shock when I got to school the first day in the bouncing red ball and Jane and is going down the hill. Look, Charlie. And I said, what? Right. But anyway, I became a Coleridge friend. I just love Coleridge's work. And he wrote, of course, the poem Xanadu. Unfortunately, he was sick and he was taking a drug which was common in the time. Starts with an L. We call it something different. What? Okay. And what happened is right in the middle, after he got the first paragraph or two written, someone came to the door to deliver a package, and he lost it. And he spent 15 years trying to remember it. Caution, when you're doing real work, control the boundaries. Okay, caution. And we control the boundaries for our clients, don't we? All right. But anyway.
See what I can do about the boundaries back there.
Okay. But anyway, in Xanadu, did Kubla Khan what was it?
Stately Pleasure Dome Decree.
Decree, you know, where, right. And when I read that, I didn't go to college, but I audited courses from time to time over the years. And I was taking a course in literature, and this great teacher read that. And it was afternoon, the sun coming through. There was a girl over there I was in love with. You know, I was young and energetic. and I was in a building designed by a great architect. I had just come from my time with Frank Lloyd Wright. And I'm sitting there, I'm vulnerable, I'm open, right? And he reads this poem. And what came into my mind was this building, complete. And the only problem was, I said, what is this? It's a great building, okay, I'm supposed to be an architect, hey, thank you, but what am I going to use it for? And I never even drew it until into 1999, 2000, we were doing a piece of work with Hewlett Packard, and we were talking about building an environment, and that's the first time I drew the Xanadu sketch of a possible environment for the kinds of things they were talking about. They didn't do it, they backed off. It was a bad time financially for them, and they canceled out the team. So I've had this sketch, and the sketch to me, this is a personal thing. The sketch to me is the vision of a place. Every time I design something, it's got a little Xanadu in it, right? There to here. But the space where I would want this to be the global center. There are millions of other places, but the global center where we would come together and practice this art from all over. And that's a mission that I still desire to complete before I turn into something else. And why is it in the book then as a model? Find your Xanadu. Okay? And then that's your there. And then everything you do is an opportunity offered by life to bring more there to here. okay? That is your there. And when you are bringing there to here, you see, we tell our client, your condition isn't your problem. You have to create your problem, and the problem has to be created well. Solving is a piece of cake, even if it's big and technical and takes 10 years. But when you're doing this, don't be trapped into the scale of their problem, all right? You want to do, not to compromise, but every design shop, every engagement is the opportunity to work with people as they do that in a way that they're bringing some of your there to here in life and reminding you why you're doing this. Okay, that is getting into the proper context. That's why Xanadu is a model.
I want to build on that idea of don't get trapped into the scale at which the client or your partner or your business or whoever presents the problem, okay? Because most problems require at least 3 levels of recursion, okay? These are the levels of recursion. If we've got a problem with this business, okay, you're not going to really be able to address it without addressing it in the context of a larger market. If we're trying to solve an environmental problem on the scale of the city, well, guess what? A city's an artificial construct plunked in the environment. So we need to think about a larger scale than that, the artificial borders of the city. And you're going to need to do something about teams. Perhaps even something about individuals. You can't solve this problem only on that level of recursion. To solve it, you have to make it bigger. Does that make sense? Well, it's a little counterintuitive because your clients will come to you and say, it's already too big. It's already too big. We need to make it smaller, simpler.
Oh, it's too small.
You can't solve it at that level of recursion. And then, you need at least 3 levels of recursion. And then, you need at least 3 iterations before you get it. Maybe moving through different...
And suddenly we have...
we call it, the model is the zone of emergence. We create a tight boundary, time, space, rules of engagement. Clients bring the problem in. We make it bigger by dealing with at least 3 levels of recursion and at least 3 iterations before the truly new, before the conditions are there for the truly new to emerge. Does that make sense? So if all you want is we're going to fix the clock, you don't need a design shop for that. If we're trying to do something truly new, truly fresh, then you have to create the conditions under which that can show up. And that model, the zone of emergence model, is how we describe in one frame, one way of thinking about it, how to create those conditions.
And by the way, when Gail and I practiced, when we were practicing this, every day, sometimes a design shop 6 weeks in a row in a different city, we were crazy. But we didn't accept a design shop on a client's terms. We have processes before, which anyone can ask and we can talk about. And we vetted the challenge. The Air Force wanted us to take their greatest asset of a technical testing capability and cut it in half because they weren't getting money from Congress. And we said, no, you can't give any of that up. Yes, but we don't have the money. Then expand your business. Wait a minute, we can't do that. But that's what we did, and we saved it all. And then Boeing built their tested their 777 there, and they became commercial. Had to get a law from Congress. It created problems, but we created a path. So we never accepted something. When someone came, we have 6 weeks, and we need to have a design shop and then merge 2 companies and move one, and an insurance company where it had to be then legalized in another state. Why? Because it takes 1,000 people out of the back office. You know, this is in the 90s, right? And I said, won't do it. Because you're talking about putting 1,000 people on the street in Christmas Eve. I will not put 1,000 people in the street on Christmas Eve. Well, we can't afford it. Make it part of the problem. Commit to me, they will all be employed January 3. Well, we failed. One person out of 1,000. It was less cost than a RIF. Okay? And those people worked up to Christmas Eve that knew they were going someplace else. And the lights went off, and the next day the lights went on, and the phone's connected in another state, and the customer never even knew it happened. Right? So the negotiation of the terms of the design shop and the scale and the scope of the design shop is one of the most important pieces of design that has to take place before a contract. All right? Because in the contract now you have set the boundaries. And setting those boundaries, and you can do that through a collaborative process, it doesn't have to be a negotiation, but however it's done, it's very important. And then that sets this boundary. And then inside of that, you start with those boundaries intact. And then what's their job? To work, iterate, and think, and what? To break the boundary we put them in. You see, to break out themselves with their answer. Extremely important, because that is what creates their commitment, their energy, their flow. That's when their genius has to gel. All right. So that's what everything that we start with is not to remain. Everything we start with is to be blown apart by the people there. You know, all the psychological reasons, you know why that's important.
Well, what are another couple of models that you would be interested in? We have time for maybe 2 more of those.
Sure.
And then we're going to let you go. Are there models that you would be interested in hearing in conversation?
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure about you mean in conversation right now, but I was going to suggest Spose. Because I think it ties into if I understand correctly, it ties into the creation of reality with what you choose to focus on to create what comes next.
Why, it just so happens.
I was working in my notebook back here, if I can find the page. Yes, I think it was here. Was it here? No. I was working along on a subject where I was pulling several things together, and it was this page, and we can all look at this. These open and shut, and they look at each other in different ways. But I got to this page here. It's kind of delicate. Okay, there we go. Oops, here. Yeah, I got to this page here, and I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with what I'm going to show you. And then I was thinking, and somehow I got a person who's in this room with, you really cut your hair, didn't you? Right? But he had been around recently, and we had talked about Burning Man. And suddenly this idea of a building I designed in 1966 that never got built came to mind, and I played Spose. Suppose we built this at Burning Man, during Burning Man, right? And Spose comes from all kinds of places. And it can be something even more, I just squeezed quantum cap. Okay. It can come from other things. Someone can come to you and say, here's the challenge, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We have to build this jet airplane and refine it so it can bomb the hell out of it, such and such. Well, I don't know. But suppose, if I did that, I could take the entire procurement system of how the government builds an airplane and turn it on its head and make it something else. You see? Or whatever. So the SPO's insight that sometimes comes to mind, to ear, right? We say, no. But take SPO's and play SPO's. Put it in your own little emergent thing. Take it through a process. Imagine it, all right? Find the magic. Find the opportunity.
I want to share a SPO's, recent SPO's. You might remember about this time last year, and especially going into the fall, the climate between the United States and North Korea, the DPRK, was looking pretty horrible. We had setters in Washington before the last two Iraq wars, and we know what Washington sounds like when they think they're going to war. And pretty much, it was a foregone conclusion, we're going to war. That war, the most positive estimate was 5 million people would have died in the first week of the war. A guy named William Ury, a great negotiator and peacemaker, he was the co-author of the book Getting to Yes. Some of you know that book. He heads up the Harvard Negotiation Project. He said, SPO's, a group of people, took responsibility for making that not happen. Suppose we work with governments in Washington, in Beijing, in Seoul, in Pyongyang. Suppose we came up with alternative scenarios and then built the relationships to get those scenarios in play. Suppose we just raised money to do it. We raised $750,000. We used one of the, William's friends was a big Obama fundraiser. And he got on the phone and said, look, there's no guarantee this is going to work. But if it doesn't work, things are very, very, very bad. So SPO's, a small group of people, a special ops colonel, a couple of EU diplomats, began building relationships and then turned relationships into bridges. We called ourselves the SWAT team for peace. Special weapons and tactics in the TV shows. That's what SWAT means. So we're going to be a SWAT team for peace. Our secret weapons are going to be imagination and compassion. And we're going to start by writing the speech that Chairman Kim and President Trump could give on the same day, declaring victory to their countries and allowing them to move on from the brink of war to something else. SPO's, somebody did that. Could we figure out how to do it? And we started with a 2-week design shop that Tom Keener devoted time to, I devoted time to. Jack Howard, a great scribe from Australia, now living in Portland, spent time with. And it started a process, and it's not a process that's reached conclusion yet. All we were working to do was avert war. But you've got to admit, the climate's a little different now than it was before. So this SPO's stuff is for real. It's for real. It's them, it's all them.
But it's awesome.
But it's for real. And you can change the reality of the world when it is a foregone conclusion that we're going to war, and we don't. And we don't. And it doesn't look like we, knock on wood, it doesn't look imminent. It doesn't look even vaguely, it's vaguely possible because it's always vaguely possible, but it looks a lot better. So you have that opportunity. You have that opportunity to find people doing amazing things and teach them these tools, teach them SPO's, support them in a way that knowledge workers know how to support people. The diplomats were doing the circuit of Brussels, Beijing, Seoul, Washington, Tokyo, and we were preparing papers, we were preparing ideas, we were preparing possibilities that nobody in those governments really had permission to do, because they were all following orders. They were all getting ready for their part of what's coming. So this is real stuff. okay? This is real stuff, it's scalable stuff, it works on some of the most serious problems in the world. And what's cool is that is exactly why Gail and Matt put this stuff together
Yeah, could I say a word or two about that?
a few years
And
ago.
Gail, my dear, please stand up. When we started in the mid-70s and then really started the process in 1980, here were our design assumptions. There would be as much change in the next 25 years as occurred since the Middle Ages. People said we were crazy. Right? It didn't turn out to be too bad the next time. We said that the rate of change in complexity was going like this. And the ability to be requisite with that change was going like this, relatively. We were getting better at everything, but we were falling behind in the rate of the two coming together. And if you aren't requisite, you understand requisite variety, it's a cybernetic term. If I'm not requisite with the challenge I'm taking on, I lose, period. You have to be requisite. You have to be embedded and requisite with the challenge, all right? We also said that the globe was going through a transformation. That's pretty damn obvious right now. A global transformation in philosophy, religion, business, technology, and everything. And we said, we have three questions. Through this transformation, humanity, what will be the blood on the street? You can go through a transformation, you can blow up 3/4 of the planet and survive, but that's a lot of blood on the street. That's a sloppy transformation. All right. What will be the architecture of this transformation? The neural to all the levels of recursion, the kind of architecture of engagement and social architecture. What will be that? Third, how much will the old architecture get across that transformational gap and corrupt and minimize the life cycle of the new architecture? The new architecture, and I don't mean buildings, right? You know, the social architecture of this transformation has to last a good period of time, because there's just a lot to do when this happens. And it's going to happen. And what about is it going to happen? And then we looked around and we said, well, that's good. What is a brilliant school teacher and innovator in education can do, and a wannabe architect who built some stuff, going to do about that, right? And we started to look around. What was going on planet Earth? In 1977 to 79 to 80, everywhere we looked, there was a problem. And everywhere we looked, there was a solution. There was someone out there, not just writing, but doing. Okay, you don't like the pesticides in the Mississippi River? There was a guy out there getting 90%, 97% yields organically. Decades later, they claimed you can't do that, but he did, and I think he's still doing it. All right. Everywhere there were solutions, we said that's not the problem. That's not the problem. We could do that. We could pick wheat or, something, but that would not have the impact we wanted. So we said, we're going to create a process that vastly accelerates the quality, the time, the capability to integrate this, to allow the genius to come out, the group genius that is there. That's always been there. That's our mission. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to practice it, and here's the most important part, we are going to transfer it to what we call the transition managers, who will stand up and facilitate across the gap. Because paradigms just don't change like this. They go, boom, right? And that is a transition management piece. That is embedded behind this practice. Now, it's fine to merge 5 companies. It's fine to help another company grow from 5 million to 500 million. No problem, as long as it's done ethically and morally. It's fine to use this tool for anything you want. But if you bring part of the there to here, and every time you engage, if you take the advantage of then doing design shops, where in fact like this one, which is rare, where you actually are right on one of the big problems, you are transforming the world. And more than just the level of your practice, the energy goes out there. The world is different, every single one, right? That is a model. That is the model of all models, to quote a certain dictator. The mother of all models. And that is what this is about. And our hope, our dream, is that as these practices mature and grow around the globe, they form a value web of people and capacity that can step up, like this group did, step up every single time the world opens up and you have a week or a day or a month or a year, that if you get in there and create a new pattern and a new solution, that in fact that piece falls into place in a better way. And that's our charge to you as we pass it on. It is not being impractical, it is being really practical, that every single time we have a group of people come to our space, we have the opportunity to create organizational and individual transformation, no matter if they want to come in and build a model of how to build, how to grow chickens. It doesn't, the subject does not matter. One is not more important than another. It is the opportunity to give the experience of the true essence and capability and creativity of humans and of humanity. So that's the story.
And we're sticking to it. Gail?
I want to add one thing. That inside of all of this, our vision was to inspire people to recreate Earth as a work of art.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
To actually figure out not how to destroy it and abuse it and use it, but how to grow it, build it, design it as a work of art. And we've seen so much of that. Not that we were doing that, but creating the space, the fields, the energy, the models, where in fact that's what we chose to do. That we are attractors. We're all attractors to a different world. We're all attracting each other, ourselves, and others to more potential, more possibility.
I don't know how I left that off, but I want to add a little bit to her end. Our model was, and people looked at us like this, like, where did this bug get? How did this bug get into my building? Look, right? I feel sorry for bugs. Anyway, Earth as a garden and a work of art for all life. All living systems. You know, humanity, it's going to take something really pretty weird for humanity to disappear. You know, we can do underground cities, we can do stuff, we can go to other, you know, we can save our ass. Some of us. But only when it is a work of art in a garden for all life on equal terms have we created something really different. Right? So that's the important thing. Now, you all will have your own vision of this. You will all have your own scope. You all have your own level of recursion by which you will go at it. That's fine. This is not a cult or a religion or some kind of weird thing. All right. But in that context, just remember that that is why this tool was created. And this is not what Matt and Gail did, not even what we have today. It's going to take all of us, many of us, hundreds of this, ultimately thousands of this, to build this tool, this language, this capability, the capacity, up to a level where in fact it can continue to take on that mission at those moments which will come when it's either going to go south I guess that's not the right thing to say here. It's either going to go north, it's going to go in the wrong direction, and it could have vectored over to a better. And 1,000 vectors can get us.
Best case, worst case, man.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Anyway.
23 seconds left to go. Thank you. Thanks very much.
It's a concert all right.
Is this the quantum cat?
The fourth cat is the quantum cat. The fourth cat is the field. The field around everything you do. There's the real cat, which is a consensual scientific observational cat. There's the model cat. There is what's the other one? The mechanical cat, and then we build stuff. But all of it is in a field. And we don't control or create that field other than the sum of our activities in our mind. So the fourth cat, to make it very scientific, I call the quantum cat.
There you go.
Quantum cat.